Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. For the first time in history, renewable energy sources have generated more electricity globally than coal. A record surge in solar and wind power has reshaped the global energy landscape, signalling a turning point in how the world powers itself. What's driving this transformation and how does it affect Poland, one of Europe's most coal-dependent countries? Well, joining us to answer that is Daniel Czyżewski. He's energy analyst at the Polska Natury Foundation. Daniel, welcome to TVP World. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me.
Is this such a big deal?
Well, while it seems very optimistic, it seems like a great news, great headline, I must say. The bigger picture is much more. We have to cover much more to see it. While, of course, that's true, the solar and wind will overcome coal in the first half, or did overcome coal in the first half of this year. The global energy generation is still fundamentally based on fossil fuels. If we are talking about electricity production, we have a proportion of 40 to 60%, 40% clean energy, 60% fossil fuels. But if we look at the global energy production, it's more 20 to 80.
So 20%?
20% clean energy, yeah, and including nuclear, and 80% fossil fuels. Of course, we are including primary energy, so transportation, cars, industry, and so on. So the whole picture of global electricity production is not so clean, but of course, this is a good sign. We had a couple of signs like that in recent years. The solar energy, wind energy is getting cheaper and cheaper, but there is still a lot to do. Besides, if we look at the global CO2 emissions, it only goes higher. Every year, almost every year, we hit all-time high. In 1990, we had 20 gigatons of CO2 emissions globally. Before 2030, I bet that before 2030 we'll have 40. We have 37.
Okay,
something.
I want to talk about emissions in just a second, but you said there's more to do. Yeah. What is there to do?
Well, my opinion is that while we need solar and wind energy, and we see vast investments all around the world in a developing country, in developed countries, we need more nuclear energy because it's stable, because it's cheap. Of course, investments are long and you have to spend a lot of money. But while it's running, it's cheaper, and the global superpowers seem to see that now. China is announced some years ago that it wants to have 500 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2050. Now it has 58. And the United States also announced just this year that it wants to have 300 gigawatts by 2050. Now they have only around 100.
So this is just, I suppose, if I understand you correctly, it's just a blip. The fact that, at the moment we're getting more clean energy from than coal energy. Is that right? And we don't expect this to continue. We don't expect that proportion to keep increasing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that proportion will change, and it is changing, especially in the last decade or 15 years, but quite slowly, I'd say. That's the one thing. The second thing is that while China and India, developing countries that are behind that rise, behind that overpacing coal, they are also heavily investing in coal. So they are investing in clean energy, but on the other hand, in coal at the same time. So that's why the emissions are rising. That's why coal capacity, installed capacity is rising. And it's not going as fast as it should, and emissions are rising rapidly as well.
So emissions are rising. India, China, not doing anything about it at the moment. So the fact that currently we're getting whatever it is, a majority of energy from clean sources, isn't really making a huge difference to our emissions. Is that right?
Well, it is making a difference because, as I said, we are hitting all-time high every year, except 2009 global financial crisis and 2020 COVID pandemic. We had economic slowdown, and that's why emissions decreased. But every normal year, we hit all-time high. We'd probably have even more emissions if not for the renewables and nuclear. But they are still the minority. And the energy transformation, looking at it from the global perspective, is still rather slow. And if this dynamics will continue, we can't even dream of reaching climate neutrality by 2050 or even 2070 or 80.
Right. Now, I want to focus on Poland. What impact does this have on Poland's energy mix?
Well, Poland and Europe generally has been a leader of energy transformation. If we look at the Polish energy mix from 20 years ago, we had 90% of coal. Now we have 60%. Of course, it could be better, but that's a big step. That's a big change. We had some 2-3% of renewables. Now we have 30% of renewables. We are waiting for our first and hopefully second nuclear power plant, and investments are looking good. We have an investment in offshore wind farms. They can provide us with even 20-25% of electricity generation. I think Poland, as well as those global superpowers, China, USA, should invest heavily in nuclear energy. If we are talking about clean and stable energy, nuclear energy is the only one to provide that. Of course, we had hydro energy, but you have to have geographical foundation for that. Poland does not have that.
So how long is this process going to take before Poland can wean itself off producing electricity, for example, through coal-powered stations?
Well, as I mentioned, 60% of electricity is produced from coal right now. So it won't be easy, it won't be quick. But I think we can reach the clean energy system with probably some gas power plants or coal power plants as a backup, as a reserve by 2050. You know, there are countries in Europe that have electricity system mostly based on clean energy. We have France, we have Slovakia. From all the countries has almost reached the...
But they're using nuclear.
Yeah, they have nuclear energy. The truth is that every country in our region has nuclear energy. This is the legacy from communist era, maybe the only positive legacy from communist era, but Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, Romania, every one of those countries has nuclear power plants.
Yeah, but Germany's gone the other way, hasn't it? It's closing down its nuclear...
they closed it and they won't open it because they can't. You cannot open them again if they change their mind.
Right. OK, so there's a lot more to talk about, but unfortunately, we're going to have to end it here. Thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, though. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.